growing up, I was never a very adventurous eater. So I never really wanted to try anything that was out of my scope. So when somebody told me about sushi, I was first kind of apprehensive. The first thing you think about when you eat sushi is raw fish. Well, that's not typically the case nowadays. Now you have cooked fish rather than raw fish, or going so far as sushi to be flash fried, which is having your sushi, which is just dipped in a batter and then very quickly fried. Sushi is also a very cheap and fast way to enjoy a meal if you don't have anything else to eat. Now, if you're like me, you wonder how to make sushi, because you go to sushi restaurants and you see the extremely talented sushi chefs and you're like, how do I do that? Why can't I do that? Or how could I do that? Well, that's what I'm going to tell you how to do. I'm going to explain how to make sushi. Now, first, when you start out, you want to make your rice. Well, I've already made my rice because it takes an extensive period of time to make it. But if you want to make your rice, you need to get 1 cup of sushi rice, which I have here, and you want to place it in a pan, and you want to put 1 1/4 cup of water into the bowl with it, into the pan with it, and boil it. After you have about 20 minutes, or after it comes to a boil, you want to let it sit for 20 minutes on low with the top on it covered. And that will ensure that your rice soaks up all the water and makes it to where it's nice and sticky so that you can roll it well. After it comes out, after the 20 minutes, you want to add about 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, and it just makes it to where the rice is not so sticky to where you can actually handle it. Alright, after you have all your rice done, the process kind of gets going very smoothly. Okay. First, you want to have all your ingredients laid out in front of you so that you don't have to keep walking back and forth to the refrigerator or walking back and forth to get your each individual item. So I have all mine laid out here, which is a plate for serving, a cutting board, 2 sticks of crab meat, and we're going to be making a Boston roll, so I chose crab meat and cream cheese, your rice, a knife, a bamboo roller, that's what you roll the sushi on, and seaweed. Okay, we're going to get started on making our first roll. I prefer to use a spoon to spread out the sushi because, unlike a wooden spoon, it doesn't have the risk of getting any wooden splinters or anything in your rice, and it doesn't stick to this silver spoon as much as the wooden spoon. So, to spread it out over the seaweed, I just get a scoop of rice each time and just dump it right in the middle. And it's really a judgment call on how much rice to use, because you don't really want to get a layer too thick on the rice, but you want to have enough rice to where when you roll it, that it makes an even layer all the way across. And what I'm doing now is just smoothing it out very lightly onto the seaweed. And when you smooth it out, you kind of want to rotate everything so that you get an even amount close to all the sides. Now, you might be thinking to yourself while I'm making this that, is sushi healthy, or is sushi the best alternative to, say, fast food or, an expensive meal at fast dining? Well, according to NatureHealthFoods.com, the 10 or the 5 top leading sushi brands, or not sushi brands, but sushi rolls average about 370 calories, which, in my opinion, is very well, because you can eat healthy and you can eat good all at the same time. Now, sometimes if your rice is like mine, it gets extra sticky, it gets all over your hands, but that's okay. And I'm just continuing to spread out my rice here. like I said, you don't want to use too much rice because when you roll it, it can make the seaweed actually fold over onto itself, and therefore it won't make an even roll. So you really just want to, you know, I tend to have about, I don't know, anywhere from the thickness of this spoon to the thickness of a wooden spoon, thickness of the rice on the seaweed. Okay, after the rice is on the seaweed, you want to place the crab about an inch away from the bottom end of your seaweed, as I'm illustrating here. Now, you don't want to use more crab than you need, so I like to use just enough of the length of the sushi. Then, I take the cream cheese and I put it right over the crab. And after that's done, you want to take the bottom end and roll it just to where it touches the crab, and then you press down on this end right here to where the bottom of this seaweed kind of folds under and tucks into the crab. And then when you do that, you roll it and you pull on this bottom end of the bamboo, and it just pulls the roll over in a circle. And when you do that, you want to be pressing down very tightly because you don't want to have any gaps or any loose spaces in between the sushi. And when you roll it, it should come out looking like this. And that is what you call a sushi roll. And like I said earlier, this is a Boston roll. It's made with just crab and cream cheese. It's very simple, it's very good, and it's very easy to make. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to put where the seam is on the seaweed, you want to put it down when you're cutting on the cutting board, because if you cut with the seam up, it tends to tear instead of actually cut. So you can do it however you want. You can cut however big a pieces you want, but I like to get the most sushi out of my rolls as possible. So you start first by cutting at one end. And I discard of the end piece because it just looks so ugly. So I'm going to set that aside. And then I'm going to go to the other end and I'm going to do the same. And the reason the end pieces are so ugly or not as, desirable as the middle pieces is because you use the end crab. And the sushi, or the seaweed on the end and the rice on the end is not as tight as in the middle. And it's not as compact, so you have, less to look at. But it tastes just the same, it's just as good. So I just don't like it because it doesn't look good. So I'm going to continue to cut each one of my pieces. And you want to have a plate, generally, to display your sushi on. And I tend to use a circular object or a circular plate because it looks better, it looks neater, it looks more inviting for you to eat it. So that's why I use a circular plate. And I'm just keep cutting. Now, cutting it tends to be hard because you sometimes want to cut all the way through and you don't cut all the way through, leaving it attached at the bottom, and that can be very difficult to deattach because it tends to rip instead of cut. So there you have a Boston roll, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces out of one roll. And generally, if you go out to eat, that will cost you anywhere from $4 to $8, depending on the type of roll you get. I think the Boston roll is around $4 or $4.50. It really depends on where you go. I enjoyed this one a lot because I like cream cheese, but you don't have to get cream cheese in them. And crab is the basis for most all rolls. And you don't have to get crab, you can get shrimp, but it's all up